Alright guys, Brian here with VetteSource, checking in on a really beautiful day for a drive through the hill country here of Texas as I chase down Big Block Chevys and stuff that I've kind of touched on a little bit last week in last week's video, but I had an opportunity to come out here to hill country, which is basically we're north of, make sure I'm going the right way here, guys. I'm north of San Antonio, kind of right in the middle of central Texas here, and it's really pretty out here. Nice topography. You can see that we kind of got even hills and such, so it's not a bad place to be. So what kind of sent me out this way was the we were looking for, or we had acquired last week, I showed you guys that 2002 Chevy Silverado 3500 truck that somebody had torn apart. Well, the workers that worked for the gentleman that owned the propane business, this was his personal truck, and they took it apart to rob it for the Allison transmission, and quickly got it stuck when they tried to pull it out of the engine bay in a traditional old school hot rod fashion. I'm assuming these guys, they at least had the skill level to know to save bolts and put things together, but the problem was they thought they could pull that motor out of the car or out of the truck just over the top of the radiator core support, and as soon as that 350-pound 5-speed Allison transmission that's behind the 496 8.1 Chevys got loose of the transmission cross member, it just promptly fell back and wedged the engine right there between the radiator core support and the firewall. So anyway, they took it all apart and then they never put it back together again. This was probably 6 or 8 months ago they did this. So I went ahead and acquired the truck, and you know, kind of like the Humpty Dumpty mobile. And what I did was, what I normally do in the salvage end of this business, because I'm always dealing with parts and things like this, when I buy things that I'm told are project cars, if I'm thinking that I'm going to put these back together, I always look for backup parts, because 9 times out of 10, I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but quite often what you get is people are not 100% honest as far as what's missing or what's broken, right? So, or even especially if they get this information secondhand or third hand because they've acquired it from the person who took it apart, they don't really know what's wrong with the vehicle. So in my case, for added insurance, when I acquire a car or a truck that I think I'm going to go ahead and put back together again, I will buy backup parts for it, especially the expensive ones if I can find them. Cool house on the hill over there. If I can find backup parts for it, I'll go ahead and buy them so that I make sure I'm not stuck halfway through a build and oh my god, I've got to find something cool. So last week, after I brought the truck home, even though I'm fairly certain the motor and tranny, there's nothing wrong with them, I went ahead and started looking around for another engine for the car, for the truck, just in case. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar, that 8.1 engine was only produced for 7 years, from 01 to 07, and it's not exactly easy to find anymore. They still actually bring pretty decent money on the open market for good used motors. So what I did was started looking through a search, digging through the search keywords that I use to find things, and I found a entire Suburban that had an 8.1, a GMC Yukon, that the gentleman said he was going to part it out because the motor was bad. The motor had dropped the #1 rod. So I started looking more closely at the Suburban and realized at the price point he was asking that that might be a good item for me to invest in as well, because I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And so I went out and I bought the GMC Yukon. It's a 2004. I haven't really showed you guys yet that vehicle. But anyway, regardless, so I was still left with, now I had 2 trucks with 8.1s, one with a broken motor, one with a motor out of the truck, but I still didn't have a motor to replace the one in the Suburban I just bought. So back to looking around. I'd acquired all the parts I needed for the truck that I showed you guys in the last video, and of course quite a few of those parts were missing or broken. You know, things that they did. They damaged the steering shaft, they cut the fuel lines, the motor mounts were bad, you know, like they typically are. Radiator core support was bad. Just stuff like that that you do in a normal engine replacement scenario. So I went ahead, I bought all those, and then of course I started digging around for yet one more 8.1 engine so that I could put the Suburban back together, just in case the motor was too far damaged from that dropped rod, which had actually windowed the oil pan. I'll show you guys more of that in the next couple of weeks when I'm working on it. So anyway, I go around and I look, and lo and behold, I find a brand new crate 8.1 engine here north of San Antonio that a gentleman had bought and was looking to sell, because once he realized he was going to put it in a marine application, once he realized how expensive the bolts or the manifolds were and other the drive accessories for the marine application, he decided it'd be better just to go ahead and sell that motor than keep it. And I jumped all over it, because a crate 8.1 engine, at this point, these are unobtainium because they really quit producing them. Well, as far as the passenger car applications, many years ago. But I can put this new crate engine back in the Suburban. See, now we're coming into Comal County line. If you guys like to see which counties we go through. So I can put this engine in that Suburban and then have a Suburban that'll last another 20 years with a 0-mile motor. And it's a 3/4 ton Suburban, not a 4x4, but it's a really good condition Suburban. The previous owner just ran it out of oil, you can tell. And that's the only way you really damage these big block Chevys. The one in this truck here that I'm driving, I've been driving this one for 18 years. And as long as you keep water and oil in them, they last. They run and run and run and run. They're more of an industrial application. That's why I always like the 427s and the big blocks and my Corvettes and things like that. So anyway, you know, today I figured you guys could just ride along with me for a little bit. It'll take me a while. Now this is actually our mountainous or hill country here in Texas, where you can see we actually have hills. And I'm going slow today simply because I've got both big blocks in the back of my truck and the Allison transmission. So I've got right at 2,000 pounds back there, strapped down, riding around, and just being careful as I go through. Plus you can see, now you can also notice, if you like to watch these scenery videos that I've done a few times, once you get out here in the central part of Texas, you've got a different topography. You're getting more scrub grass out here than you have back like where I'm at in Harris County. We don't have the pine trees out here. You've got more short stunted trees, but you've got a really nice rolling topography out here that's really pleasant to look at as you're driving. And I'll probably come up on them here in just a few minutes. There's, honest to goodness, just wild cactus growing everywhere around here. So you'll see even in the hill country, the building style out here is more you know, rustic, and they use stone a lot for the exteriors of the houses. You saw even in that neighborhood when I pulled out, they have a lot of stone facades on them, veneer, instead of the traditional brick like we use down in Harris County. And it's really neat. I mean, you can see here I'm straight up, this is our hill country here. So you wouldn't, if you didn't know any better, you'd think Texas was just a big old flat plain. But Texas is unique in that there's so many thousands of miles of roads and area to explore. You can pretty much hit every type of climate environment that you'd think of going through here. So it's really cool. You can see these short, I think these are juniper bushes that line in the side of the road here. But you know, I'm just gonna drive for a minute, let you guys see what it's like out this way. I might point out a few things, but you know, figured you could ride along for a second as we go through this. And of course, when you're back on these out country roads here, and these aren't exactly country, there's quite a few people live out here, but you got to be careful. There's a limited sight distance on these roads, and Texas is still likes their 65, 70 mile an hour speed limits out here. So you really got to be careful coming through here, especially in bad weather. Today's beautiful weather for driving. but I'm just loaded down with stuff, so I'm kind of loafing along in the slow lane, if you will. So enjoy the drive here for a few minutes. I'll leave the camera on for a minute so you guys can watch and see what this looks like. There's a huge house up on the hill over there on the right, so a lot of people take advantage of it. And of course, this is the area of our state that a lot of the people coming in from the really high tax burdened California and New York are seeking shelter and refuge out here from the high property cost where they're at. And you know, of course, they come out here, and a lot of times they get surprised too, because what they don't expect is, even though we don't have state income tax here, we actually do have a fairly high amount of property tax. So, you know, if you live in some of the more populated counties, you're straight up paying $4 per thousand assessed value on your homes to every year to live in that home. So, you know, if you've got, you know, $1 million property, you're paying $40,000 a year in property taxes. So a lot of people will come in to Texas thinking what a bargain, and it is a bargain in some respects, because $1 million here would buy you, you know, a 100-acre ranch. But then when they start to realize, uh-oh, wait a minute, I gotta pay, you know, pretty much $4,000 a month in property taxes, it kills them. And of course, that's just an extreme is what I'm talking. You know, most properties are not that high. But you can see here, like I said, this rolling topography, you really got to go slower. Of course, they warn you, do not pass, don't do this. And you can see these properties, they're really nice out here. So come across through here. This area has a lot of really old live oaks and cedars, and a lot of really interesting trees out this way too. None of the pine trees like you'd see. The eastern part of the state is all that piney woods forest. In fact, when I went to go get the truck last week, that was 100-foot tall pine trees in the Sam Houston National Forest, which was really cool to see some of that. But this out here is definitely neat, but again, you just got to be careful if you're not used to it. And God forbid, I can only imagine how many cars got wiped out on this the last couple weeks when we had that hard freeze here, because again, we're just not set up for the infrastructure, and there's so many miles of roads in Texas, there's no way they can cover all of it sufficiently with, we don't even have salt, they just use sand, because we got plenty of sand. So interesting to see how they accommodated that out here now that everything's melted. Now the one thing to consider too out here is, boy, during the summertime, it is hot out here. It's not as humid as it is in Houston, but man, you don't want to be stuck out here multiple days in the middle of July and August without proper protection and water to sustain you, because the temperature out here gets really, really unpleasant for a lot of people. And that's, you know, the one thing I always have friends that visit from other states are always shocked that Texas is as hot as it is most of the time. And I haven't even talked about going west into, when you start start getting into the Big Bend, Fort Stockton area, those out there, those guys get really hot in that desert climate. But again, it cools down at night. Whereas in Houston and Harris County, we just get nothing but straight up 90–100% humidity for 4 months at a time, and you can definitely feel the change. You can go to the left there, see all those houses on the hill over there. That's some high rent property over there, I'll tell you what. If I had time, I'd go cruise around over there and see what that's like. Right now what we're doing is we're rolling into Spring Branch from the west, and what I'm doing is heading back down. This is highway, for those of you looking, following along with me maybe on the map, this is highway 46 just west of 281 coming into Spring Branch. So what I'm doing is traveling out 46 back down through Spring Branch into New Braunfels, and then over picking up I-10 to take it east back into Houston. I had to think of my direction there, so I was getting backwards. So anyway, this is the town of Spring Branch. It's a nice little town out here. Not too small, but not too big. There's a lake out here. I'm trying to remember what the name of the lake is, but it's out this way. So this is a very touristy spot. And of course, people come out here and they fall in love with this topography, so they stay. So that's going to bring us up to 281. I'm probably going to drop off for now so I don't make this a 4-hour long video, but I'll check back with you guys in just a second, or just a little while when I get back on I-10, and I'll show you guys some more of the landscape as we're getting back over towards into Houston, because I realized today when I left I had showed you guys going north and going east, but I hadn't showed you guys going west. So we'll check back with you in a little bit. I'll be right back, guys. Stand by. Alright guys, back out on our interstate here, heading towards Houston, and we are east of San Antonio, west of Houston. I think we're probably about 20 miles out of what we're called Luling, Texas, which is L-U-L-I-N-G. See that mile marker there? That would be mile marker 617, which, for you guys that are not in the States, it may not be familiar. Most people that are from the States here know those mile markers are on our interstate highway system. So that 617 on that mile marker there was there to inform me that the Texas border west was 617 miles behind me going the other direction. And yes, it is that far to go to El Paso. In fact, one of the amusing parts about traveling, if you're going to go from Houston to Los Angeles, California, the halfway point is just about El Paso. So you're halfway to Los Angeles and you're still not even out of the state of Texas yet. So this road here, Interstate 10, runs all the way from Florida all the way to California. It's one of the longest interstate highways that the United States has. I think I want to say Interstate 30 or Interstate 40. I think Interstate 40, maybe it's 40, is the one that runs from New York to California. It's a bit longer than this one. So this is one of the main roads. No, I think it's 30. Because 20, we have Interstate 10, 20, 30, and 40. And just another trivia tidbit, all of our interstate highway system in the United States, which are federal highways, the even numbered roads run east to west, and the odd numbered interstate roads run north to south. So if you're ever over here, you can tell which direction you're going simply by the road that you're on, and whether you're facing the sun or not. So a lot of people won't even know that if they're not really road warriors or haven't really been on the roads or don't travel a lot. But anyway, so you still see we've kind of got some of this hilly countryside here that we're traveling through with more of the, the trees. Of course, our trees have been suffering because a lot of our vegetation got killed in the last couple of weeks with all that cold weather. Actually, to the right there, that's a really nice, one of the Texas roads rest stops. What I'll probably do is I'm not going to stop it, obviously. I drove past it, but we're coming up on another one in about 100 and something miles, and I'll stop at that one so you guys can see how crazy nice the rest stops in Texas are. It's actually kind of amusing. There's some vintage cars going to a dealer in probably California. So anyway, this is our main road here. I'm about 160 miles out of Houston here, and buoying at the rest stop will give me a chance to show you guys the other engine that we picked up for the second 8.1 liter equipped Suburban that fell into or made itself available to me. So anyway, you know, just as you can see, this is about as wide open and barren, not barren, because there are people that live around here, but they're off of the interstate in this section right here. It gets to be fairly quiet between the towns. You know, it's interesting too is that Texas is big enough, statistically, from what I understand, by the scientists, that you could fit the entire world's population in Texas, and I think still have less population density than New York City. I think that's what I remember reading, but I don't know. But you can see when you're out on these long, expansive highways here, you can see how big the state is itself. In fact, we have a ranch here in Texas, privately owned ranch called King Ranch, which if you've ever seen the Ford F-350s or the F-250s of the King Ranch edition, the King Ranch is here in Texas. And the ranch itself, the land of the ranch itself is bigger. It's either the state of Delaware or the state of Rhode Island, I can't remember. So, and that's just one ranch here in Texas. So you can kind of get the scope or the size of what we're dealing with here. And in fact, I've grown up here in Texas, and I've seen a lot of Texas, but I still haven't seen every single section of Texas. So there's a lot of people who live here that never get to see the whole state simply because it's just so big. But yeah, so we're traveling on. I'm going to be taking a rest stop up here in a few minutes just to kind of hang out, grab a soda or something to eat, and then we'll get on over towards the rest stop there. But I thought I'd come back and show you guys what it looks like out here on the open road, and I'm going pretty fast. I'm probably hitting 70, 73, 74, and you can see I'm getting passed up by most traffic. So one thing to consider too, if you're going to travel through here, the roads, the interstate highway system moves pretty quick coming through this area. In fact, I'm laughing as I make this. I'm in the low 70s and I got a box van passing me. So anyway, I'll catch up with you guys in a few minutes. So let me get over a little bit further down the road, and we'll check back in then. All right, guys, we've made it to one of the rest stops here in Texas. Now, Texas is kind of known for the ridiculousness in size and niceness of their rest stops. This is just a mural under the porte-cochere as you come in. This one's actually, this will be the Colorado County Safety Rest Area. This one's not as fancy as some of the other ones that may have been built a few years before, but you can tell it's actually kept up. It's almost like its own little, like a civic center over here. You could probably hold meetings and stuff inside. Of course, 18-wheelers are always stacked on the back side of these, but it's a fairly nice, this must be an older one, I think, right before they started really going crazy with them. The newer ones, you almost have to ask which one of the governor's relatives got the contract to build them, because they spent so much money on them. But you can see these are really, really, really nice, you know, and well maintained for the most part too. It's not like going into some dungeon when you're trying to get off the roadway. So we stopped here. I'm still 60, no, probably about 90 miles from home still, but just kind of a general overview. Of course, there's our Interstate 10, Colorado County, and more of a little cross section, you can actually see how big that place is. Like I said, for a rest area, it's a fairly ridiculous size. And of course, here's what we were talking about earlier. I wanted to give you guys a little view so you can see. This will be the new engine that we came across, the new crate motor. And if you've got a quick eye, you'll see, well, it's not apparently obvious. This is actually a crate engine built for marine application. So it's got a few extra goodies on it that I'll have to swap out. There's our original motor from the 3500 1 ton. And then of course is our new crate engine that we'll be saving for that Suburban. So it should be interesting to see. But yeah, so that's that was our trip to, you know, 4 or 5 hours away from home so we can get that done. So it looks like we're getting dark here. We're starting to lose daylight. And I'm gonna get the last little bit of heading back to the house. So that's gonna wrap up this video today, guys. Appreciate you hanging out with me on the road trip. And I'll catch up with you next time. We'll see you then. Thanks.